I'm Holly Lazaron, and I am so happy to see you all. Thank you so much for coming today. This is my favorite event that I'm volunteer coordinator of, and I have been participating in this event since 2011 when it first started. And the first event that I went to was in Richmond, and there we are in Richmond, so wonderful poets today. That event was a sidewalk poetry write-in held in front of a coffee house. And I will share that I spent so many hours looking for what poem I would write on the sidewalk. I almost missed the event until I realized I could actually write a stanza from a poem that I had written. And I didn't. So we are one of over 500 events that are occurring simultaneously internationally on this date. In the whole week, there has been another 100,000 Poets for Change initiative occurring, and that is a Read a Poem to a Child project. It can be one adult reading a poem to a child. It can be, there are events happening at schools and libraries, lots of different universities, and it's not just word, it's also music and visual art and theater art. So it's really an amazing grassroots initiative that has grown and grown and grown and blossomed. And it includes all the forms of creative expression. It's boggling to me sometimes when I think about it, how many different countries and different locations that events are occurring. And in some of those countries, it's pretty challenging for creative folks to gather and to be offering their words or their music in a public setting. It's not always safe. So I really want to honor and respect all the local coordinators and all the communities that are participating this year. And you too will have the opportunity to share your solidarity with a couple of communities, because when you come up to read, I'm going to offer you the opportunity to draw a piece of paper from the bowl of solidarity. On your piece of paper will be the names of 2 different communities that are participating. So I invite you to simply, whatever words you want to use, to acknowledge those communities before you read. Hello, John, welcome. And then our reading order, as some of you know, is by draw. So your names are in the calendar of collaboration. And yes, this is my kitchen calendar. So be fair. There's no already advanced planned reading order, other than I set the intention that everyone would read beautifully, meaningfully, and there'd be a great flow, an interesting flow in your readers. Are you ready to start?
We have what, 4 minutes?
No, with this group we got 7.
Oh, 7?
Yeah, 5 to 7. So hopefully you brought one of my poem, but read whatever you feel like you want to read. If you want to get up and sing spontaneously, you can do that too. At the end, when we finish the reading, we're going to take a break halfway through, and at the end, I'm going to offer you the opportunity. I brought a jar of the now over 405 waters that will pass around, acknowledging our water worldwide, and I'll offer you the opportunity to discuss it in whatever way you choose. And then I also brought a basket, and some of you have brought drums and what did you do, other instruments. So at the very end, we're going to make some noise to send out that vibe of acknowledging our solidarity worldwide, and let's go ahead and send some love out into the world. I'm not saying that in a second way at all. I'm saying it as an acknowledgement. Where does our inspiration for writing poetry come from anyway? It's the same source for everybody. It just comes from a different way. So are you ready to start? Let's get rolling. Great. All right. Any questions so far? For those of you who are new to WriterHouse, the restrooms are here. And I'm really looking forward to hearing about to read. This is you kind of quiet and closer. Yeah. All right. There we go. That scene from Macbeth when I'm doing this boil, 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 your ball. Oh, I think the one slips paper in one ball. Yes! Alright, let's try this. It's been a long few years, hasn't it? Alright. Mariana Dunn. Okay.
Thank you, Polly.
Thank you, Mariana. I'm so glad you're here.
All right, so I withdraw from the colander of solidarity. And I am reading in solidarity with San Miguel de Tucumán, I don't know how to speak, Argentina, and I've not been to Argentina
Yes.
yet. I don't know if I want to go or not. But at any rate, I'm going to start with a poem from my chapbook, Prindle Smells. And this is actually the opening poem, because this is a collection of drawn from letters written to my ancestors during the Civil War and spirituals and in my own writing. This pulls all together and really reminds me of how much the legacy of slavery is still very much a part of our lives today. So this one is called The Reaping. Look at my watch, so I know how much time I have left. It is 4:12. Horizon wide, that amber scythe harvest, bent double calico, sun scorched ghost, my life you reap. Sir, I have never had the fortune to fall into any situation but as a servant in husbandry in England at the present time. As I have no doubt you've been informed, England is in distress situation, and almost every class of people and trades are laboring under very trying circumstances. If I don't see you more, now God bless you, now God bless you, if I don't see you more. A great number of laborers are not employed, and those that have employment, their wages are so small they cannot maintain their families. But what is still more to be lamented is many cannot be hired at all. Such is my situation at present, which induces me to write you as friend and countryman. Your petitioner is fully persuaded you will do everything in your power to assist me in bread, providing it is advisable for me to come to America. Yours, Joseph. You are the bread that I eat still. I am the grains you sowed and milled. Hands and water turn the wheel and grind the bread that I eat still. Dear brothers, I take the pleasure of writing you a few lines in Joseph's leader. As he wishes to come to America, we part in body, but we meet in spirit. If you think you could get him a situation, we wish you to endeavor. I think you could get him work as an overseer in such a place as Brother Thomas had. Goodbye, my brother. Goodbye. And this is called photograph. Keep going. 3 more minutes, okay? I don't know if I'll get very far. This is called photograph. I have taken you into myself, dead person. Your body is in mine incorporate, bone of your bone fused. I consume the world with you. What have I become now that you've become a part of me? More conservative, less straight? You've been divided. Your heart, lungs, and liver have been resurrected and washed in the blood of your new-made kindred. But we could pass on the street without seeing that of you in each of us. we could kill ourselves and one another, not knowing what we've done. 2 more minutes, okay?
Keep going.
All right, I got 2 more, so I'll do them both. I think I can do it. Okay, this is called In Memory of the Unremembered. September 11th again, and the evening news again replace names read against the solemnity of bells, as this day begins receding into other days of names lost to unreason. For Nagasaki, paper lanterns still float across darkening water, but who will remember Bear River? Rwanda recedes into St. Bryce's Day, Lazaron into the First Crusade, days for dissertations and search engines. Beyond these are the unnamed days of no one at all. Their screams recoiled into silent villages, so forgotten, not even the soil remembers. This is the last one. My husband has gotten really into politics lately, which is, I think, quite necessary, but sometimes I miss the things that we did before then. So this is called Campaign Committee Meeting. The world needs saving more than I need peas, which is why today we will not tie coarse brown twine to star-shaped wrought iron hooks attached high up on the side of our house. I will not climb a carefully braced ladder and dangle the twine down to you. You will not weave it through a green mesh fence and toss it back to me again so that snow peas can send out spiraling tendrils. At first tentative, then self-assured, unfurling onto the stream's extended invitation to ascend the transformative air. Thanks.
Thank you, Mariana. And I especially appreciate the last one, having heard another poem you wrote about putting the twine and working, creating the garden with your husband many, many years ago. Is that fun? You edited it. Thank you. Love it. And welcome our next reader, Prindle.
Facebook friend, we belong to a pun recovery Facebook group, and she posted something this week that said, "Be careful not to sing into a poem, or you might strain your voice." We're a part of the world that I deal with. Poetry is therapeutic. So, I am to draw. Glasgow, Scotland. My father's kin are from the border country, which is south of there, and New Orleans, Louisiana. The Big Easy.
I like that combination.
Yeah. Probably some Wisconsin. New Orleans, there's probably some of every culture. New Orleans. So I want to start with a poem I wrote over the summer, because like some of us, I remember the moon landing, 1969. So this is a little bit of a memory piece about that. Moon landing plus 50. It rained most of that week, so we couldn't see it anyway with the naked eye. And the grainy TV imagery and the muffled voices from 250,000 miles away, this orbed story seeming so alien to my lifeguard lifestyle, and the big concert coming up in a couple of weeks over in New York State, or that moony girl who kept draping herself on my white guard stand. Recalling that when Apollo was announced, we believed what the president said. Before Vietnam and Watergate and stagflation opened a continental latrine trench between the government and the people, nearly failing to mention that this was only another frontier story, another land grab of empty spaces occupied by nothing, or mere heathens, thus ripe for that special Christian rapacity, forgiven in advance for bringing the word to the wilderness, awakening too late to the bitterly plain truth that savage wisdom is what we needed all along to keep this singular blue pearl from becoming a charcoal-dusted, cratered place where a white man's blueprint lasts a million years. Yeah. So that's my take on the memory of the moon landing. This second piece is inspired by a book I'm finishing called Braiding Sweetgrass. We're here. Robin Wall-Kimmerer is a botanist who grew up in the Potawatomi tribal tradition, so she studies both. This book brings them together in a way that's really refreshing and powerful. So. And there's some language in there from the Potawatomi language that she studied. So that's what inspired this. Animacy. Popawi is Potawatomi for the power and really the longing that pushes the capped mushroom mycelium spore messenger into the open air overnight. Is like the force coming through Dylan Thomas, green fuse, connecting the blossom to appendages of pollinators who want only the nectar but carry the pollen for free. Yahweh was Potawatomi for being long before the Israelites were breathed into being by the Great White Father, is now and always was only as simple as the sweetness of the wild strawberry. Yahweh is being in that moment before the next inhalation when life decides which corpses are not ready, leaving we who are breathed astonished with the new life rising in the darkness of our carapaces.
I too wrote a poem inspired by that same word.
Okay. Howie actually means a lot of different things that rise, but we won't go there. And I don't know the culture well enough to say. So this poem, actually, I'm remembering I was workshopped at a class I took here. So I think Mariana was in a class, maybe you were with Erika, like 2 years before this, spring before this. So I worked on it. It's inspired by Wendell Berry, and it's called Hope. 2 parts. 1, hope comes harder as I grow older. Now I know the difference between hope and expectation. I know that expectation is resentment foretold. Hope comes harder because I know I do not own the power or the ending. And I've seen the hard way that any of my small dreams can wake up bad. That hope does not depend on good feelings or belief in a sensate reality or a singular bright future, waking from the nightmare of loneliness. That hope is harder when I insist on wishing that my daily afflictions were not so. Perhaps I only need to listen to the younger voices whose hope is drowning. I guess I should confess the truth that I did not keep the forest or the mountain from rapacity, the mine from corruption, the stream from spoiling its bed or its glossy banks. I guess I should seek forgiveness from everyone I have let down or betrayed, myself included. For only then can I become present in this singular place, can I give weight to this simplest of knowledge, earned and lost and regained and lost again, that there is no place more worthy of my caring than this ragged place to which I once belonged, as it was in beginning and ever shall be, or 2. Perhaps then I will remember belonging, remember how to greet the other who could be a neighbor, who could join in a naming, the old man across the road, the otter in the branch bank, the heron standing motionless in the pool I dug deeper in the branch, making more space for the water to soothe my errant feet in this place alone. I listen that I might know this place less by worded language than by antlered sounds of roots and stones, writing the notes of the new song I've waited so many lifetimes to hear. This knowledge cannot be broken by power or increased by wealth. It can only silence the siren call of the wealthy for our faith, or for our work, or for what lies beneath this webbed and rooted and tufted land. When that call comes, I hope I will join my knowledge with those who can articulate the common sense that could save us. I hope I will use that certainty to stand as one with your dignity on the ground of our original blessing, no matter what they say, no matter what they try to steal, and they will. We can rest in this hope, knowing that it rests in the ground we walk on. Perhaps we can allow the light to rise from within the words that can make those awakenings in the night only the shadows that walk with us these withering days in its willful ignorance and its bad intentions, in places we all let slip again and again from our waking sight. Doing terrible damage that in our blindness we rail against only in others. Ignoring the doors opening to the light in which it is possible to make out the likenesses of others. Giving them back their names. Neighbor, relative, stranger, otter, woodpecker, willow, oak, water, and stone. These likenesses might even take on a shining that transforms every riven thing into a familiar, a neighbor of ourself, that anxious tissue of identity worthy only to be shed the way black snakes shed their skins twice a year. The way this place takes me in, because this is home, and they have to let me in regardless of my errancy. Thank you very
Thank you, Bill. There are some wonderful videos available on the Pioneers organization of Robin Wall Kimmerer speaking. If you haven't seen them,
Videos, you say?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
And on the web somewhere?
On the pioneers.org.
Pioneers.org. Got it?
Pioneers organization, yes.
I am making a note of that.
It's a wonderful organization to be aware of.
She's a heck of a good writer, too.
She is. Have you read her first book, Gathering Moss?
No.
I highly recommend it. It was moss that drew me to look for books about more than just the scientific information about moss. And that's how I found her 2005.
Oh,
Great.
Great.
Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
That's good, James, because you're up next.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Well done, James. Welcome, James Cole. We are so glad to have you here.
So glad to.
Poetry newsletter. So if you're interested in other poetry events in town, let me know, and I send it out every other week, just different open mics and things like this. So it's really nice. And I run a critique circle, so if you're interested in getting feedback on poems, that kind of thing, and sharing your poetry, come talk to me. So a lot of things. Sorry, shameless plugs. So this first one doesn't really have a title yet, and it's kind of a combination of sort of reactions, my reactions to moving to a new town and becoming an adult and doing grad school and things like that, and also just sort of coming to terms with a lot of environmental things as well, and just situation. It's a weird mix of concerns that kind of slammed into me over the summer when I wrote this. So anyway, here it goes. I'm not so due north anymore. Less inclined to find myself in ivy-poisoned English or vaguely laced on border walls of Tudor homes. I do not mind. I do not do as much as I am ought to find in my shoe. This is the problem. I've moved up the valley, northward. At least I'm told as much. These creek shadows show no different blues, no separate hues of season, but this is my father's summer. He bought it at a Piedmont thrift store and broke it open for the months to eat, so I become moth, fuzzed and furred, wings deferred, but otherwise I move lightly. The opposite of a ship, tossed toward Siren Rocks at sea. It wouldn't be so bad if I could snuff that part of me out, if I could make it a whisper, or else exchange my coat. I'll need something more salt and pepper. All the better to wear in a world plugging its industry, chugging its misery into the house of Horace. With his one eye, what can he do but cry a while over the earth? We used to call that rain, but now I don't give myself like I give ghosts. I wordlessly wander and trip through weeks and years and people, and it's better that I walk. It's better that I talk and yes, and then study a little with less talk and talk and little less, but because of this, I chalk it up to nothing because yes, I want to know why cats go missing on my street. I know what I want to finish on. I have a few options. I'm going to do this one. This one's a little more serious. So being a neuroscientist, I have clinical things on my mind all the time. I study the eyes and degenerative eye diseases, so like glaucoma and something called aniridia. But I've always had a lot of concern about mental health, especially nowadays. And I'm also a bit of a history nerd. So, has anyone here ever heard of Burke and Hare? It's a pretty harrowing tale, but back in the day when doctors were still learning a lot about, the human body, and they had to, dissect cadavers, they would have criminals that would go out and basically rob graves. And there were a couple of guys named Burke and Hare in Edinburgh who decided that's too much work, and they were going to start whacking people off and delivering those instead. And they got away with it for a while until they killed a young man named Daft Jamie, who was a mentally challenged young man who was very popular in Edinburgh at that time. And I just was reading that story and I thought a lot about mental health and homelessness nowadays. And I wrote a piece about it called Daft Jamie. And again, there's a little epitaph here. Up the close and down the stair, but and ben we Burke and Hare. Burke's the butcher, Hare's the thief, Knox the boy that buys the beef. That was a children's rhyme in Edinburgh in the early 19th century. Knox was the doctor that they sold the bodies to. But this is, So this is sort of my a dedication to Daft Jamie. What a day. A day and date the boy cannot recite. Young with a gambling gait, that Daft Jamie, a man with a mother, a boy with a sister, sought the world in the upward-outward streets. Quick with arithmetrics, a jester with broad speech, he made each a little lively in the cup pointing of his world. Half a better pence and still he stood out. It's not like he asked for much. Not like he handled that pan and groped egregiously. He liked his snuff and little pocket things that clinked. And yes, he could sing, and yes, he could chance a step as any man who wants to jig can shanty out his mind, pour plenty from his eyes, and be smiling all the same. He knew the town by the soles of his feet. The moss in the streets spoke a braille to his toes, and so it goes, they found him out by the crook of his foot. Isn't this daft Jamie? The vivisector said. I know him by the warm of a grin he loaned the morning before last. And the good doctor shook Hippocrates' nods. He was looking for his mother the day they made their wage, didn't tip back with the tipplers, but shed a shout like black-winged cloud, yelled his lungs right out of his mouth. Daft Jamie in the ledger, burped at 18 years. And the streets that knew his speak spoke out, and the crowds that crowed, the marketeers, the students, kin and kind. The hare gets away in this story. Gets away to his ditch end. The other, not so much. They snapped him dead for the crowd, some thousands who, with vengeance on their mind, went to that body of Banks and burned it to the ground. All right, on a lighter note. I also read a lot of humorous poems, believe it or not. And this is one of my favorites that I came up with. I'm slating to write a whole chapbook of self-help poetry based around this theme, and just generally about purging ourselves of negative emotions, but also acknowledging them. Anyway, this is called Yell at Bread, hence the bread. A little background on this. I was doing a crossword once, and one of the clues was to do nothing. 4 words down, or 4 letters rather. L-O-A-F, loaf. And so I got to thinking, either loaf of bread, the object of bread, came first, and people just started saying that, oh, you're loafing about because you're doing nothing, like bread, which I thought was pretty rude. Or it was the other way, where the people just started calling units of bread loaves because, well, bread is nothing. So anyway, I looked it up, of course, and they had the exact year when the verb to loaf came into use. It was 1835. But they didn't explain where or why. So I had to come up with a story, obviously. And it turned into, again, this sort of self-help, emotional little tirade. It's called Yell at Bread. The year was 1835, the place unknown, but I'd surmise a baker with a need too deep, a cheating wife or little sleep, lost all the proofing in his head and laid the blame upon his bread. Stupid bread, I have no doubt that while you sat and loafed about, your idleness could not prevent the way the lulls of life ferment, with spirit spade and leavened lust collapsing underneath this crust. You do not vote or aid your peers, who succumb to every crumb of fear. You fight no wars, you make no art, nor heal the carbo-loaded heart. You stale yourself, grow stiff and cold, become a petri dish for mold. I yell at bread, it's what I do. It's not like bread can yell at you. We chew it, tear it, saw, and slice. Sometimes we'll even cook it twice, make toast, or something more obtuse. So, yeah, yelling seems like less abuse. If you seek solace or sweet relief, go to a bakery and give your grief to any loaves that catch your eye. Harangue each naan and marble rye. Wheat and brioche, baguettes and scones can disregard the sticks and stones. It's better bread should feel your wrath than hapless humans who cross your path. For though bread's made of doughy stuff, it lingers when the going's tough. Shout out your lungs at things you bake. And if you have no bread, then damn it, just use cake. Also, this is very good. Whoever made this.
Jamie? Jamie did it.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, James.
It wasn't long after that that Whitman wrote, "I loaf and invite my soul." Just saying.
Hey. I give thanks for the rain,
Here, here.
and I bless the elements who have come together to co-create it. And welcome, Erika. Erika has come a long way to be with us today. She's back, and we're so glad. We miss you.
Yeah, lower would be good. I'm one of these vertically challenged people. Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and Vienna, Austria. So I can handle the home of Mozart. Okay, this first one is a new one. I don't think anybody, I actually just finished it 2 days ago, so brand new. Okay. Always coming home. This liminal space between a gossamer breath to bring you back. Autumn's whisper to grandmother tree, time-twisted ponderosa pine, climbing russet quilted hills. Hands that hold you here and now, always coming home to miles of mountains and sky. This one's rather appropriate because the title is Castillo, which is a Zapotec word for lake. I had thought to walk the canyons, but thunder called me home. Oh, but you see, wild nights are my glory. The stuff with splintered moons and ozone, where the canyon play above the buffalo grass and ponderosas dance, pinion perched on Split Rock's edge, Chop chasing rain snakes with his axe, while jaguars laughs in their sleep. This next one is about a river in Seattle, Washington state, which was one of the most recent rivers to become undammed, which has been an increasing movement within several areas of the United States. So, the Elwha River watershed is booming with new life after the world's largest dam removal. Seattle Times, February 13, 2016. River reborn, she has returned, flowing freely, the whole watershed waiting. River singing, shrugging off a century of confinement. Ambulating otters tagged and tracked follow the fish, wondering where do they come from? These forage fish that fatten the eagles. When they dynamited down dams, truth tumbled down the coursing current through Goblin Gate and Glenn's Canyon, Sockeye and Steelhead, harking toward the headwaters and home to Mount Olympus. This one's a favorite of mine. Moonchild. Diana's punk rock kid, studded leather moto jacket 2 sizes too big, this dad on the diary, but sweetly, no dice. Her blue Cane Corso dog squad carried white scars upon their chests, running rabbits by sight. Her twin brother's the golden boy, music ace with that killer smile, fingers fretted strings with the aftershave bottleneck. His lead singers are cool. Her best friend's a hunter. The guy practically walks on water. That boy rides a ram with toes tires 3 feet too tall. Shouldn't have fallen for Scorpio, though. He's going to get stung one day.
I remember that poem. Okay. So I'm going to suggest that we take a little stretch and a little break. There are refreshments at the back of the room. You haven't read. Tom Brown.
solidarity with Racine, Wisconsin, and Panama City, Panama. Well, it seems to me there's been more chaos in the world over the last year or two, and more trouble to deal with than ever before. Many old reactionaries appear happy with the status quo, but after what happened here in Charlottesville in 2017, young people came out to oppose forces of hate. It's certain there will be change. I wrote this poem, Invasion, for this event. On a morning walk in early spring, a cherry tree spread its petals to the sun. Black cables stretched above, pulsing light of offs and ons, singing zeros and ones. Inside the fiber optic sheath, stories from foreign places, spoken in a language I do not know, invaded every household lined along the road. Keening mothers in Aleppo, searching the morgues. Lament of a boy in Baghdad, legless in his blood. Dirges of murdered prayers in burning mosques and churches. Silent stare of children locked in cages. Pan away from sinking boats, pan away from the blat of bump stock guns. Close up to a politician lying through septic pores in ultra definition. Broken in a flash, a data burst, on a bright spring day above the cherry tree in a country I do not know. So my wife and I were in Europe this spring, and while we were there, Steve Bannon was too. He was spreading his theories on nationalism. And so I just thought about how Mussolini got hung from the balcony, and it kind of cheered me up. We saw and spoke to refugees in several countries. They were in Italy and France, especially in Paris near the Eiffel Tower, and in London too. And when we got back to Virginia, I was about to order a sign, "Hate has no home here," but at the exact same time, Nazi and skinhead groups painted hate symbols and slogans on the stop signs in schools near us. So I still have to get my courage screwed up now to order a sign, but I'm going to do it. I think with all this, the contumely and chaos going on, that it's nice to take a little break or step back a bit. And this poem is called Hi Brazil. When the world falls apart in tatters and nothing is left that you know, you may decide to wander but don't know where to go. Drift out into the ocean, let the land grow small, and seek your personal island to get away from it all. Sail in your loneliness until mountaintops appear. There above the foaming waves rises the Isle of Hi Brazil. You wonder why you hadn't seen it before, why it was hidden by the mists, then realize it was always there, but you didn't think to look. Next poem is called Sea Turtle. And I look at the sea turtle as a symbol of endurance. So it's been around for hundreds of millions of years. And through all of these eons of change on Earth, and it's still survived. So I don't think we need to wait that long for change to come, but I like the image of the turtle carrying its home on its back and roaming the world. Time provokes the leathery eggs. The sand begins to boil. After 200 million years, the hatchlings haven't forgotten the way up. Climbing from the gritty nest, they flounder through the sand. Without indecision, a sea turtle chooses sides, leaves the land where it came from, in a flipper scurry through pecking beaks and snapping claws to the incoming tide. Plunging into the surf, swimming as in eons before, it dodges sharks now instead of plesiosaurs. The turtle roams in the Gulf Stream current with seahorses and shrimp for accompaniment. In its shell, it's solitary, its carapace for home, swimming the watery reaches alone. To a sea turtle, this makes sense. The journey is its recompense. Then, passing over Atlantis, heads for high Brazil, remembering when the earth was new, wondering, why does a turtle remain a turtle still? Just to finish up, so I look at mankind as constantly evolving, and I kind of think of myself and humanity as a sort of mooncalf, misshapen creature trying to find its place in the universe. And it's not quite like the other animals, and needs to find a place to belong. At the crack of time, when the earth was new, God was a woman. Her song filled the air, transporting us. Mooncalf, wandering beast, mooncalf without a home. The smith melts the ore, but doesn't pour. Mooncalf wanders alone. When God was a man, there was thunder and lightning. He ran down the mountains in hordes. His song was the wail of war. Mooncalf, wandering beast, mooncalf without a home. The smith melts the ore, but doesn't pour. In chaos we journey on. Time ebbs away, earth grows old, the winds blow down upon us. When at the very edge of doom, the stars may fade, yet the dream shall not. Mooncalf, wondrous beast, someday we shall come home, and the molten gold comes spilling out to make itself be known.
Jeannie. Hey, Reaser. Thank you, Jeannie. It's an honor and a joy to have you here with us today. It's a long way and over a mountain to be here. Greene County, long way. Very well, seasoned traveler here. Dominican Republic, and Kingston, Ontario, Canada. Welcome. Connection there. So the first couple of poems I'm going to read are from a collection that was just published a couple of weeks ago. It's called Conversations with Mary. Each of these poems is inspired by a word, a phrase, maybe a titling of one of Mary Oliver's poems. So they're a conversation between one of her poems and one of my poems. And again, a little shameless endorsement. This collection will feature in a poetry reading that I'm doing October 20th. That's a Sunday, up at Lydia Mountain Lodge in Greene County, which is a gorgeous location overlooking the South River Valley. End of October should just be fabulous up there. So I'll make sure to circulate that or friend me on Facebook, and I'll put you on the list. So all of my work is at the interface of nature and human nature. Using nature as conversant and mirror and inspirator for our personal explorations. And part of that is about attention and devotion, which is the subtitle of this collection. And many of them are inspired by my life on my farm in the Blue Ridge Mountains. This one's called The Encounter. I heard it at my front door. The front door. This great scream. It was, in fact, a scream, and it begged me to come running on a large shoed foot of wonderment and another of fear, striding one after the other. What could it be? This thing that screams at my front door. And there he was. I had asked for him only days before. And there he was.
I grabbed my camera and headed after him. Slowly, but fast too. He looked back, making sure I was there, and sauntered. He sauntered down the driveway, away from the cabin. No, he loped. He loped down the driveway, picking up his big, magnificent paws and letting me count the pads below and memorize their shape and their position so that I'd know his signature anywhere. In the mud, maybe, or snow, by the creek, I'm sure. And there it was. And there we were. And then he leapt to the right, bounding the thick greenbrier, and up the mountain slope he was gone. He didn't ask permission to leave. He didn't even gesture goodbye. It was informal. The wild isn't polite. No one ever told it to be, and it wouldn't be anyway. But there he had been, and there we had been, together. Long enough to know the existence of each other, long enough to be able to say we had an encounter. How would he describe it? Long enough for us to feel, for me to feel blessed and him to feel whatever he felt. I could claim that my prayer was answered. I certainly couldn't deny it. I had so wanted to see a bobcat. This one's called a snake in the hand. My parents decapitated every snake they saw. I remember watching severed heads and severed bodies writhing separately in the grass. The mouth would open and close, open and close. It was pink inside, maybe black. When I was old enough to read field guides, my parents got in trouble. Big trouble. According to the books, there were no venomous snakes where we lived. None. Every single species was harmless. Actually, they did good things. I was not happy. I laid down the law. You are not allowed to kill any more snakes. My declaration was non-negotiable and backed by facts. Plenty. That was the day I learned to stop trusting everything adults said and did. The next snake that I encountered was a garter snake, a large female. I reached down and picked her up, gently placing the fingers of my right hand behind her narrow head and supporting her sleek body with my left hand, just as the books said to do. Then I went to find my parents. I was told it was not coming into the house, ever. But I was given a playpen-sized box that an appliance had arrived in earlier that week. The snake and I spent most of the day on the back patio in the box with grass that I pulled and worms that I caught. She ate a big one. It was still wriggling when it disappeared into the universe inside her. I learned a lot about snakes that day, like how easy they are to love. I let her go. And the next day I went down to the brook that ran patiently behind the house, Harrison Brook, where I knew northern water snakes lived in holes at the top of clay banks. I waded in waist deep, causing water to separate my left hip and embrace me before flowing onward, and waited for them to swim by, going to or from their streamside apartments. When they came my way swimming, I put my hands in the water under them, their long undulating bellies, and gently lift them up. Then I would get bitten. It never hurt much, but it did draw blood, sometimes. I did this again and again until they trusted my particular touch. Then I'd sit one or two on a sandy shoal at the turn of the creek and just look at them and talk to them. I think they said things to me too, but I don't remember what. exactly. All demons can be befriended this way. All demons can be befriended this way. The snake in my hand right now is a lovely ringnet. She's steel gray with golden belly and collar. She's silky smooth and elegant, looped around my thumb and forefinger. I relate to scales much the same way that religious people relate to beads. Holding her is an act of prayer. But what is the prayer? This is my question. I think it's a good one. I think perhaps I'm still praying for those decapitated snakes. Or maybe I'm praying for people. Decades have passed. I'm still clear about what is harmless, but it seems much the world is not. So I'm hoping I have time for 2 more, do I? Okay. Or I might have time for one. This is actually a prose poem, and this one is in this collection, but it's also going to be in a collection of essays and prose poems that'll be out in December called Ridgelines, A View of Nature and Human Nature. And this one's called White Pines, and it's a prose poem. My little cabin is in what they call a holler. Here the sun is slower to arrive than on the ridges. I prefer to meet it there rather than wait on the world's turning. Greeting the day is ritual. No, it's more than that. It's ceremony. The trees know this too, and I think also all those shrubs beneath them and the vines that use them to reach up to the heavens, like me, climbing these mountains. Often the deer watch me, branches as masks. Today it was a young white pine the doe chose. She didn't know that I knew the fawn beside her was there, low in the stream bed, but I did. They walked on together and I alone. What do I make of the rabbits in the grassy meadows? How there are so many, so complacent. Isn't this fox certainty, coyote certainty, wonderful in the way that it teaches gratitude for clover and love of a moment? Back to the white pine. There aren't many here, not tall, not dense. Mostly they are young and spindly. It's like the artist had forgotten them and then suddenly said, oh, pines. there must be pines. Then he, or she, fit them into the remaining spaces because they are deserving. 5 long needles each, that's how I know they are white pines. Of course, there's also the moments of buying them, white pines. For the dozen Christmases, we were something called a family. Once, well, more than once, I sat with glorious children on a faraway mountain watching the sunset and the stars arrive, confident and twinkling. We counted them in 3 languages and sang songs that these same stars had taught their ancestors out of necessity. I don't remember the words, but I remember the laughter and how the night sky was caught up in their eyes. They didn't know darkness like I know darkness. I prayed they never would. A walk isn't finished until the walker has acknowledged at least one great vulnerability and discovered something to be grateful for. I'm not talking about the pines. I'm saying that maybe we should be more like artists, rabbits, and our ancestors. One out of, this is Coming Home. This is the predecessor to Conversations with Mary. It's Coming Home, learning to actively love this world. And I'm just going to end with one out of this. It's called The Seed. I am the embryo of the seed. Let me call this in which I implanted my mother's womb. Here I am held. Here I am nourished. Here I am the possible human. My umbilical cord is my root structure, anchoring me to ancestral knowledge and into the rich organic detritus of eroded lives and savory fecal matter. Everything that once was is a resource. Everything that once was is a resource. Everything. Rain, the joy and grief of the world, soaks and softens me. Without it, I become hardened and I have no hope of intimacy with the light. I must be cracked open to grow. These are the structures through which my soul can reach, extending itself, simultaneously longing to receive and lamenting the ephemeral nature of my gifts. I show up because it's how I pray. I unfurl because it's how I answer prayers. I grow branches and leaves so that we may have a place to meet. I can bear flowers and fruit, delicate, fragrant, and aphrodisiac sweet, but not without having known relationship. This is a place of co-creation. Only the lonely believe in the solitary forces and adversarial stance of their own midday shadow. So you see, these seeds of myself that I place in your hands. This is my way of saying, I believe in you. And I'm asking you to do the next planting.
Thank you. Unless you want to take them home. You know, they could be your fortune. Thank you, Jamie. I too, as a child, was forced to watch a snake being killed, and it had a really, really lifelong tremendous impact on me. And I remember waiting, not understanding why the black snake was coming out. All these things shape us. And look at the great poems you've read. Welcome, John Moss. Hi.
So it looks like I'll be reading in connection with Belgrade, Serbia, and Austin, Texas. Okay. All right. I do have a couple poems. So the past 6 months or so, I've been in the process of finishing up a new book, and there's 5 different sections, and I've saved the last 5 poems to intro each section to the bitter end, and it's been a difficult process, but I finally decided to write them in this way, and it's really in a purely experimental way, and I've taken some, just a brief text, a line or so, and then I've coded that line into a different language. And it's very complicated how I did this. I don't want to go into the weeds on that. But I kind of revised the line from Shakespeare. And I'm going to read you that line before I read you the end result. But that line will be evident in the final product. And that line is, the stream of my mischance drives me beyond myself. And it's from an elegy that Shakespeare wrote. And this whole book is kind of about grief and death. And I was driving up to Ohio. I've been driving up there once a year for the last 40 or so years, to see family. And this time, driving up, the last 30 miles, I just saw just uncountable number of dead trees. And I'd never seen that before. It was very, very unsettling. So grief takes all form these days. But so it's going to be kind of a purely experimental poem, something different than any poem that's been read yet. So if you're not a fan of experimental poetry, I don't apologize. So this actual phrase is the poem. Okay. So the language has been turned into language. So the stream of mindless chance drives me beyond myself. Although body, frantically theater lights, body unnecessary, body. Although body, infinite unnecessary winter, body unnecessary, noise scattered, theater unnecessary, outside scattered, nameable year. Theater unnecessary, although infinite theater, unnecessary, winter light, body, infinite scattered theater, frantically theater light, noise scattered, although body scattered, infinite scattered theater, body unnecessary, frantically doubt, infinite, infinite unnecessary winter, winter light, delirious theater, body unnecessary, body, theater unnecessary, body unnecessary, doubt, although, body unnecessary, although infinite, outside scattered, although body scattered, frantically doubt, infinite, theater unnecessary, although infinite, body, body, unnecessary, winter, winter, nameable year. So those 5 poems are all written in that same way, and none of the other poems in the book are anywhere similar to that. And this is a poem that's kind of an example of the other poems in the book. And this poem is called Songbirds Aren't Songbirds. And it's kind of a perception poem, right? It's a poem about if what we're seeing is what we're seeing, if what we're feeling is what we're feeling. Songbirds aren't songbirds. Lifeless, half of the loved world follows its auto-written instructions like a sentient artificial intelligence. Hopeful, a third of the divided world travels up the Mesmerian San Diego freeway. Through the shadow's requests, through the dendrites of how roots and all, the medicine of chances, of curvilinear thrills, of the soon dormant skull cap, is of the mind that what's missed is present. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Joanna Lee, welcome. Would you mind, please? I invite you to consider coming back tomorrow with Joanna. Do you want to speak about your event tomorrow?
So tomorrow, I'll be back, Tom will be back, and about a dozen other Richmonders will be invading Charlottesville and WriterHouse to read here from our recently released anthology called Lingering in the Margins, which has over 50, mostly Virginia poets. 9 of them will be here to read. Also myself and my 2 co-editors, Judy Mulcair and Marcia Owens, will be here to talk about the process of putting the book together, what it was like to edit and sift through submissions and that whole process and take questions from the audience. So if you're interested in putting a book together or what it takes to put a book together or what we've done in Richmond, I encourage you to come back, and it's from 2 to 4.
And to support the River City Poets, which Joanna birthed, and the Richmond Poetry Community, we are being video and audio documented today with thanks to Tom and Deborah Brown, who have also come from Richmond. So, all in time. Thank you. I'll be here now.
I'm reading in solidarity with Asha Gayata, India, and Verizaj, Kosovo. To the woman with a gun on the bridge. I know. It has been too long for me to look how the world has stopped around you, for you. All of a sudden, you are someone. You cast your own shadow over our morning commutes, slowed to this instant, this precise angle of gleaming sun and asphalt and sticky mid-river June, where you arrived at the cement balustrade of no more. No goddamn more. Maybe the water below is high for this time of year. Maybe you are a myth someone tells me over the counter at the coffee house, or maybe that's not how it was at all. Maybe you got up this morning and went to work same as always. Either way, know there was a grandness in it, and someone will remember. This next poem is an acrostic poem, which is really not necessary to the poem except in one small detail. The art in question was an exhibit at the Institute for Contemporary Art in Richmond, and particularly Rashid Johnson's monument, which was this huge sculptural exhibit that took up like a whole floor of a building and was filled with plants and books and video screens of various activities. And one of those activities was men doing, I think, Tai Chi in the sunlight on the beach. That's what it means for the poem. The poem is called Waxing On. We are each of us refugees from something. Even the men on the beach fighting sunlight, Zen and the art of predicting echoes. How violence almost rhymes with silence. Could if you squint your eyes. It's deja vu, like the dove on the windowsill outside the spare room. How I could lie and say I didn't call the cat to the pain. He couldn't reach her, of course, but shouldn't there be guilt for the flutter in her little gray breast? Here's the truth. Art is a mirror, a different reflection for every pair of eyes. I have two more. This next was inspired, I don't know if you guys remember about it, I guess a little over a year ago back, when the government was putting regulations on the language that could be used by the CDC, and there were official reports, and so they banned words. Right? Scientists claim there's an explanation for everything. These words are banned from poems and budgets and all legal documents except essays on graduate level metaphysics. For fear they will transgender your language, turn the vulnerable butterflies of you into slow, solid meat. While you aren't watching, whole continents ghost down from someone else's idea of heaven. When you look up for salvation, it will have become just another melting fetal ice cap, being born into a sea of dry cocoons. It happens on a tectonic scale. You won't see the salt levels rise. They'll weave lullabies from the skins of polar bears, leaving out the pink fists and God dreams of diversity. So you'll be left with so much more to forget, so much of entitlement, of science and evidence-based metamorphosis. Take your weak, your poor, you're different, and shove them back in some other room. I wanted to end on a positive note, because this is an uplift reading. I really appreciate you, Polly, putting it together, and all of the readers and everyone coming together. It's a beautiful thing. And this is a true story. It's called Grace. The first time, he fell from the sky as if he didn't have wings, landing on the burnt skin of asphalt just in front of John's truck. I watched the slow breath of his flightlessness, that he didn't right himself or rise away. So I shifted the heavy bag off my shoulders and squatted there in the middle of the road, reaching a cautious finger to the dry raindrops of his feet. He stepped right up, and I bore him in past the curb and the low-falling brick wall, past the little weeping cherry, the 2 early chrysanthemums and their already browned blossoms, up onto the cool stillness of the front porch. We stood for a bright moment, even as the clouds gathered for a summer storm. He, his slow exhale of wings, his launch, sudden as smoke, off into the blue-gray of Eden. Thanks.
Thank you, Joanna. From every one of you, your poetry is just such a treat, such nourishment. Judith Greene.
All righty. This has been wonderful to hear. So many people I've never heard too. Yeah, let's see who we're connected with. Busboys and Poets, Arlington, Virginia, and DC and Augusta, Cyprus. Are they actually reading from Augusta, Cyprus?
Yeah.
Yep. Every place that,
Oh my God.
every place that you've thrown a name from has either a 100,000 points to change for women. A couple of them are read a poem to a child, which is a 100,000 points to change initiative. That's a week-long initiative. Yeah. So everywhere, all these names are actually where events are occurring.
We are connected. This is power.
We are all connected.
Yeah.
That's from Pachamamas to Donuts.
Okay.
If you don't know that, look it up. It's
Don't think I do. So I'm Judith. I'm going to read. There's so many things in our world, I think, that happen to us. Sometimes we're very small, sometimes we're very old, but words come not so easily. So I'm going to read something that I began remembering when I was 36, my real life. I mean, it happens to people because of bad stuff, but I want to align with other people that are finding voice, and that's everybody in the world. Because something that was squelched, or there's somewhere here that has something to say in our skin, our flesh. So, body shop. Clouds on their knees and bone chambers. I hear tiny white eyes, bodies staged, a cellophane noise, the skin in the well of hours. Yes, animal cookies, red, yellow circus cage. No, a box. The string round the finger or on the post bed hangs. Let's go back. A museum of air, the skin on stilts, a neck, my neck swanned against the egg glass ceiling to watch. The men's stage the body below, harvest its image, the body I wrap, no drape in sugar fleece, with a dinner of plush fogs, bartered chocolates in caramel ponds. Stop. I see a body, no, many bodies inside one. Dress papers, wrappings, blowing from my sugar sleeves that afternoon, or when was it? I took a small pair of scissors, cut open my ear, and see walking in a cage behind, following her. No, I mean, So thank you. All right, and this second one, this second one is all about hope. Okay, it's like real life, and so I'm in Virginia. It's called Our Daily Bread. I'm in Virginia. He's at home in Houston. Maybe you could tell them, I know this is the first time you were telling your story. Are you scared? I just wish my wife, why can't she be with me to share this? I'm recovered. I know, and the other compulsive eaters on the phone line, about 40 to 50 when you tell your story, can you share how you loved her? How you had to brush your teeth in the shower and not enough room at the sink? How you fell down at 579 pounds and couldn't get off the floor? Your sons couldn't pull you, the paramedics shoveled you up, so people get you were powerless, could not stop binging. How you could not stop, didn't matter how much you wanted to. It took God, like the real deal God, and looking at resentment, self-pity, fears, sex stuff, the inventory we did. You can talk more about doing the steps later in your story. Other overeaters need to know you were going to blow, your blood bubbling, that dying did not stop you, how you could not get out of your car alone. You could not stop binging for your wife, for your sons. I didn't trust you, Judith. I didn't trust you at first. I know that, me being bulimic for 40 plus years, what did I know at 127 pounds, how you thought I was candy ass. You were the real deal, not me. But the head, the mind upstairs, it's the same no matter the pounds. This is important, Ben. You were invisible at 579 pounds and me at 127. Other overeaters on the line need to know this. It's upstairs, it's the mind. The mind is the same. If we are chronic, the hopeless variety can't stop binging. Only a spiritual experience, that power can stop us. And Rainey, your wife, you loved her so much. How love. Are you crying? It's okay if you do. Ben, how you met her at an Overeaters Anonymous meeting 30 plus years ago. You hung out, didn't do the steps, do recovery, talked with her with Rainey for 5 hours Monday, Wednesday, Sunday. Day after day, never did the work. The steps, you missed the God part. Love, yes, fell in love. How 30 years later, she still could not stop binging. She had that apron of fat removed from her tummy. Can you help people see her? And the pain did not stop after surgery. She got hooked on opiates. What kind was it? Hydrocodone. And she is binging, a chemical engineer working at home from bed, in bed binging. You can't see it's taking her. You can't see it's killing her, it's killing you. Could not be honest until we did the steps. It kills. You were too much of the food. Love, your love, how much you loved Rainey. Could not stop her. That's the first step. You could not stop, she could not. Powerless. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith.
Oh, Polly.
And everyone. What a great reading. I only wish we had more people here to hear in this space, listening and hearing your fabulous poetry, each of you. What a huge gift. What a huge gift to hear you read today. Thank you. So, I'm going to read and then we'll move into the segue of closing. First, I'll read. In Saladonia with Macedonia, Greece and Aphrodite, Greece, and Pikeville, Kentucky. I'm going to read 4 poems, one of which is a prose poem. 3 of these were inspired by experiences relevant to Blue Corn. And the third one I'll speak about when I get to it. I also, before I read, I would like to acknowledge and honor the original custodians of the land on which we are sitting, known as the Monacan Nation. And I would also really like to honor and acknowledge Karen Wood, who was a Monacan elder and an extraordinary poet, and for many years the director of the American Indian Program for the Virginia Foundation for Humanities. And she had signed up to read here 2 years ago. Wasn't able to make it because we're in ES. So I wrote to acknowledge her and what a huge contribution she made, not only to the Monacan Nation, to poetry and to this state. So, I need a sip of water. So the first 3 poems are relevant to an experience with blue corn and some other direct personal experiences. Only variable for a few minutes. Dark as an overcast new moon night, blue corn kernels in slightly irregular rows on a palm-sized cob feel cool to my touch. There's ancient weight in this dry fruit of inflorescence. One side appears intact. A turn reveals what is missing. A scar at the top informs where the male tassels grew. At the bottom, a minuscule hole from which hair-like silk strands each received one wind-borne pollen grain into an ovule forming the female ear. Light reflects the smooth, hard surface, delineates, as did morning sun through the open passenger window of Mr. Billy's pickup, draw my attention to a rifle on the passenger seat. Neither random or sudden genetic alteration induced Maze's dependency on human intervention to reproduce. Protected by a hard, shiny coat, possibility yet lies within each ovule inside every kernel. A result of selective breeding, this descendant of wild grass was dried, cultivated, and carried before there were national borders. Change initiated migration. Fading on red desert rocks, painted, tall-standing, many-fingered ones are still watching. Does the spiral turn in or out? When loosely held, these kernels rattle in a cupped, slowly moving palm. Listen for the voice of the once wild. Each kernel bears visible indicators of natural and imposed conditions. Shut the hush. Have you seen state marker Q28 on Preston Avenue commemorating over 8,000 individuals involuntarily legally sterilized to prevent conception of, quote, genetic inferiority, end quote? And this one is a one. Before hummingbird season, Mr. Billy's walking on the gravel driveway toward Bobby Ray and Bernice's one-story vinyl-sided house. Air's cool enough. He's wearing a long-sleeve earth-tone plaid shirt. All the buttons are buttoned. The adult, deer-sized dent on his silver pickup remains below the rear passenger side door and above the wheel. Trucks parked closer to the house where the swings set without Trucks parked closer to the house than the swing set frame without swings. Mr. Billy has been tall and slim since we were first introduced by Winston, a pedigreed schnauzer who nearly died in the jaws of a Doberman. The goodwill ambassador of this county road, Winston lived with Bobby and Bernice. Mr. Billy drove over the mountains to walk 3 miles a day with Winston. Down to the railroad tracks and back, Winston on a leash, 2 friends. We all cried when Winston died. Mr. Billy's thinner now. Looks up and waves as I greet him, walks fragilely toward me. The gravel rattles beneath my feet. Sunlight reveals small pink scars on Mr. Billy's face and top of his left ear where cells of potential hazard were removed. Never before have I seen him shaky or open his arms this way, nor does he speak as usual of weather or his garden. Cucumbers, tomatoes, lima beans, blight on his cabbage this big. Or how his garden keeps him going. Mr. Billy doesn't plant blue corn. He's not heard of regenerative agriculture. Each spring he tills, amends the soil with lime and non-organic fertilizer, sprays pesticides. He'll drive 20 miles for the lowest price hybrid seedlings. Sometimes Bobby Ray rides shotgun, gently holding young plants lined in rows in plastic trays, steady in his large, athletic, calloused hands. These men smile like proud parents when I admire the seedlings. Co-workers who befriended each other, as did their wives, decades before the men retired from a local quarry. The two couples played bingo together at the VFW post. This year, Mr. Billy planted his "If I'm Still Here" garden. He always gives 3/4 of the produce away. Every morning, each evening, he checks the garden. Doesn't say aloud the word commune. I hear it in his voice. I know fear when I see it. Mr. Billy leans toward me as if I'll catch and hold him up. Have you tasted Bernice's pound cake? She makes a perfect pound cake. I was driving to take one too. Thought I was having a heart attack. Drove myself to the emergency room. The cake is still in the truck. Scared myself. Can't just sit around doing nothing. Neighbors have to help each other. On tiptoe, I offer. He accepts from the waist up. A hug, a prayer. In the way the outer coating of a corn kernel holds safe the truth within. So those three are in a sequence of 5 linked poems that all have some of the same words in them. And this one is in acknowledgement and honor of Josephine Van Damen, who is one of the original founding water walkers in Canada. And as I said earlier, I've brought water that will pass around anymore. And Grandmother Josephine passed last winter. So half the circumference of Earth. Grandmother walked, carrying her dented bucket, around shorelines of the 5 Great Lakes, beyond borders, stepping into global waterways, joining drops from all oceans. When tobacco she planted in still water began to float around, Grandmother knew the water heard her singing prayers. Prophecy rippled her to bridge communities, empower 7 generations. Water walkers, one voice, one bowl. All right, thank you for your wonderful readings. We have 2 minutes and John needs to leave. So, let's pass around the water, and I'm also going to come around with a basket of, I have rattles and shakers for anyone who wants to play them. I also brought a couple of extra drums, and we're going to stand up together and sound out our sending positive attention worldwide. Today is an extraordinary day. When we think about over 500 events occurring on the same day, and people just like you, just like me, who are creative, who care, and I'm going to get Tom, it's drum. So let's stand out just for a few minutes, and I invite you as you're doing so. Just imagine that there. Thank you. This water will be shared. Right. Imagine, if you will, that there's a line of light flowing from your heart into the center of the room, and that light, that love that's in each of you, sharing it with the above. Below. Remembering, here we are sort of in a circle. The above is always above us, the below is always below us. Earth is always sustaining and nourishing us. We are always in the center of the directions, north, south, east, and west, which means, my friends, we can never be lost. So, just for a couple of minutes, send your hellos out into the world and send some solidarity out to all those other colors. From my heart to your heart and everywhere in between. So I'm going to ask you to quickly join me, and let's send that message out again into the world. We care. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. So we're going to move our hands back. We'll do this 3 times, and when you raise your hands in the air, say the word Shango with enthusiasm, of course. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Shango! Shango! Shango!